Hey guys, welcome back to Scuderia Car Parts. Today we're going to do another one of our catalogue walkthroughs, and today we're going to focus on the SF90 from Novitec because there's quite a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily call it misinformation, but just confusion online about kind of what the car can and can't be modified in terms of the exhaust and how it reacts to it and things like that. So we'll go into some detail. We're seeing a lot of kind of talk about how, you know, you can't change the exhaust on the car because it knows and then it starts smoking and that's not what happened. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail. I know exactly what happened with the car in question, and perhaps if you give me a ring, I'll kind of tell you in some detail, but it's very simple. The cars don't like to be decatted. They're quite back pressure sensitive, so when you install a decat exhaust, you're obviously reducing the back pressure massively, and the car starts to react quite badly, and that's when we have seen some smoke, particularly when you're moving from pure EV and then restarting the combustion engine. There can be huge plumes of smoke. So, you know, the advice that we give is that if you are going to do an exhaust, by all means do one, and they sound amazing, but do sport cats. You need to have that level of back pressure that the 100 cell cats provides in order for the car to run properly, to avoid smoke, to kind of catch some of the particles, because as we'll go in some detail, you're removing quite a lot of stuff from the exhaust to get the sound out of it. But yeah, that's the bottom line. You can install an exhaust, don't decat it unless you're going to do a dedicated ECU remap that really quite substantially changes how the car operates from standard. Better would be to do sport cats and then install the Tektronix unit, which then cancels the warning light from the GPF and the cats. So with that said, let's go into some detail. Novitec offers two versions of the rear silencer. There's a valved and then there's a non-valved system. So this one is the non-valved, and then this is the valved, and you can see that's the second channel up there. Novitec offers these in either steel, which is typically what we recommend. They also do Inconel for those of you who are interested in weight saving, and then for those of you who just want to go, you know, balls to the wall, kind of throw the kitchen sink at it, we can then gold plate your Inconel system, which looks amazing. From there, upstream, there's a few different things you can do. So if you've installed the Novitec rear silencers, you've actually removed the GPF, which sits just here. So these are not necessary. The OPF replacements are only required if you are leaving the original rear silencer in place and you want to get rid of the OPFs. You can just order these OPF replacements and install those, and the car will sound a lot better than standard. It will probably bring it in line to something like a Pista stock, because the engine on the SF90 is very similar to the GTE-derived Pista engine, but it has the GPF, similar to the F8. So yeah, if you remove only the GPF, you're going to be in line with kind of the stock Pista. And then in either case, you know, you can install these cat replacements or sport cats with the OPF replacement, or you can install these two with the rear silencers. So that's kind of how it works. And as we've said, we don't recommend the D-cats, we recommend the sport cats. You can then also install some carbon stainless steel tailpipes, which are really nice, and these come in a few different kind of forms. Either they are gloss carbon with a kind of black insert, or they are matte carbon with a black insert. Or you can do it with gold inserts for kind of both the matte and the gloss. So purely what your kind of taste dictates, but all of them look really nice. And then there are a couple of bits of electronics as well. There's the Novitec Tektronix, which I've spoken about at some length before. Perhaps if you've seen our other videos, you'll know. But the kind of crib notes are, you install this into the OBD port, and this unit is designed to scan for a very select number of P codes or error codes. Typically it scans for the cat inefficiency, so if you've put sport cats or decats, cat inefficiency errors will start flashing up on the dash. This scans those errors, deletes them so you don't get a warning light, and then it does the same with the GPF warnings as well. So we'll remove the GPF from something like the F8 or the SF90 or like the Roma or the Portofino M, and there's a whole new set of errors that we need to then deal with, and that's what the Tektronix does. Now, it doesn't deal with things like cat temperature irregularities, because it's very important that the car informs you when things are getting too hot, so it still continues to do that. And it also doesn't inform you about, or sorry, it doesn't cancel errors to do with back pressure, which is what we were talking about earlier. We found this to be very prevalent on the Pista, sometimes on the F8, and essential to the SF90 is to maintain a solid level of back pressure. And if you don't do that, you will still get warning errors. D-cats, will sometimes flag this up, but Sport Cats won't. We've never had a car with Sport Cats that has that issue. If you are doing a non-valved exhaust, the car will still try to electrically actuate the valves. And because it can't do that, it will then give you warning errors. This Novitronic module, basically you plug in series into the running gear and the electronics for the valves. And within there is a series of kind of code which then communicates to the car that the valves have opened, so you don't get a warning error, which is really good. And then there's the Switchtronic as well. This is a very simple bit of kit, so there's the receiver module here, which you'll usually put in like the rear bumper. Just make sure that it's watertight, because if water gets on it, it's game over. So we'll normally wrap them in a plastic bag, cable tie with the cables coming out the top, and that way it stays really, really dry, and we will affix it in place like that. You get two remotes. The first one is this cigarette lighter button, which is quite nice and kind of illuminates when you turn it on and off. And then you also have the quite regular or quite familiar key fob attachment as well. So that's the exhaust in quite a high level of detail. Again, it's quite confusing, so please do reach out if you need any clarification, or leave a kind of comment down below, and I will personally come and answer your questions with pleasure. But yeah, so we'll move on. So the next thing to talk about are the various wheel and suspension options. Novitec makes 3 wheels in conjunction with Vossen, and those are the NF9, the NF8 and the NF10. They're forged wheels, so they're incredibly strong, incredibly lightweight. They're just really, really good bits of kit, and to my eye, they just look a lot nicer than really any of the standard wheels. The carbon wheels you can't live with, because if you chip them, the structural integrity is done, and you all know how expensive they are. They're like 10 grand a wheel. So if it was my car, I would take them off immediately, put them into storage, and put something else on. And then in terms of the actual metal wheel options that Ferrari offer, I don't know, they're not aggressive enough to my eye, and this is where Novitec comes in and Vossen and kind of addresses that issue. So there are 2 wheels that have the 5 wheel bolts revealed, and those are the NF8 and the NF9. They're essentially the same wheel, so they're a 10-spoke wheel, but the NF8 kind of has an offset to it, kind of a directional wheel with one of the kind of spokes are kind of canted, for want of a better word. So that's the NF8. The NF9 is the same wheel but perfectly symmetrical. And then the NF10, which is my personal favourite wheel, it's the same wheel as the NF9, but it comes with this quite clever star-shaped centre cover, which will basically make the wheel look as though it is centre lock, but with all of the kind of ease of use and functionality of a regular 5-bolt wheel. So that's what it looks like on the car, and you can just see, it skeletonizes the wheel massively. You can see the brake rotor and the caliper really, really nicely and clearly. And the range of colors is absurd. I mean, look how many different options there are. Basically any color you want, be it brushed or matte or polished or whatever you want, we can do it. And these are a couple of the ranges. It's more extensive than that, but these are the kind of main ones. The only case in which I would perhaps go for the NF9 over the NF10 is if you've ordered titanium wheel bolts and you want to be able to see them. Obviously you can't see them with the NF10, but with the NF9 you can. So that's kind of why some people would go for the 9 and not the 10. And then in terms of the suspension, there's a few different options. If you are lowering the car, it's really important that you push the wheels out, because as you lower the car, it really accentuates how inboard the wheels are. And by adding spacers, not even particularly aggressive ones, just minute kind of finishing touches, that's what makes the car look really good. So we would recommend 10 mil for the front and then 15 mil for the rear. 20 is an option, but it is a bit aggressive in our experience. Sometimes it can result with the wheel kind of protruding from the wheel arch itself, and that doesn't ever really look very good. You would not be able to use the standard bolts that you've got if you've got the spacers. It comes with a set of chrome bolts which are really nice. Alternatively, if you still want titanium but you want to use spacers, Novitec can supply, from the same supplier that supplies Ferrari, funnily enough, a set of wheel bolts that will fit. If you are using the Novitec wheels, then there is no reason to use spacers, because the offset is adjusted to do what the spacers would do anyway. So if you're lowering the car on standard wheels, spacers are essential. If you're lowering the car on Novitec wheels, they are not required. And this brings us nicely on to the kind of 2 suspension options. in reality, you know, you are either going to order one or the other depending on what your car has. So if your car has lifter, then you don't need this, because this is a set of lowering springs that has an aftermarket front lift system. And then this is the same set of lowering springs without the front lift. So obviously the Assetto Fiorano pack on the SF90 dictates that it's not possible to have a front lift. And so this is a really nice way of kind of installing that. The kind of caveat is, I believe that the lowering and suspension kit only works with magneto dampers. So it's worth checking what your car has beforehand. And then the final bit to talk about are the aerodynamic parts. Again, I'm not going to, you know, guide you through this in any particular detail. You either like the parts or you don't. They kind of don't have any functional purpose. It's purely aesthetic, but they can make the car look absolutely amazing. And the thing that I draw your attention to kind of first are these front race fenders. They come with these awesome carbon fiber inserts. There's a kind of detent for the scooter rear shields to go in. So once it's on, you know, again, it's not this crazy like bolted on Liberty Walk wheel arch kind of modification or something like an RWB. It looks like something from the factory. It kind of looks a bit like an XX mod or like a GT3 part or something like that. It's just a really lovely addition to the car, and something that, you know, Novitec has seen some massive success with. The other thing that I quite like is the front lid cover. So this bit here from standard or as standard can only be ordered in plastic. There's no carbon option from the factory, so this covers up a huge chunk of plastic at the front of the car and looks really good. And then if you have not ordered an Assetto Fiorano pack but you want the ducktail, we've got you covered. So Novitec does their own version of the ducktail, which looks kind of like this. It's almost exactly the same relief as the original, as the kind of OEM ducktail from Ferrari. And there's two parts to it. So there's this kind of rear lip section here, which is the kind of ducktail itself. And then just here, that rear deck where the Ferrari badge sits, that's the active spoiler, which kind of raises up and comes down. And that is also something that Novitec offers just here, and they call it the rear spoiler. So that's that bit there. The rest of it is, you know, all just quite nice stuff, but again, it's just a matter of personal taste. The other thing that we can do, however, which I really would highly recommend, are all of the engine bay carbon and then the boot lid cover. This just puts the car right up to, you know, 110% and looks absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's the Novitec range of parts in quite a high level of detail. Again, if you've got any questions, pop them down in the comments below, and I'll happily swoop in and come and answer. But thank you very much for watching. If you've liked the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this, give us a subscribe. We will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.